Okay, let's just jump right in. We've all had that feeling, right? That one teacher who just got you. It's one of those things we all take as fact. A great teacher-student relationship can totally change the game for a kid's motivation and how they do in school. And this isn't just some vague, fuzzy feeling. It's a core idea in education. As researchers Burns and Van Bergen point out, these relationships are like an anchor, especially for teenagers when everything else in their life is changing. So everyone's on the same page here. We all agree this is important. But here's where it gets weird. Here's the mystery. If this is so obvious to all of us, then studying it scientifically should be pretty simple, shouldn't it? Well, it turns out that when researchers try to prove it, to pin down what actually makes these relationships tick, the whole thing just falls apart. In fact, it's a total mess. When a group of researchers did a huge review of all the studies on this topic in 2025, they didn't find a nice, clear picture. Instead, they found what they called a fractured landscape. Basically, the science was all over the place. And just to give you an idea of the scale of this problem, they looked at 237 different studies on teenage motivation and teacher relationships. I mean, that is a ton of research. You'd think with that much data, we'd have some really solid answers, right? Well, get ready for this. Across those 237 studies, the researchers found 222 unique ways that these relationships were being measured. 222! That's almost a different ruler for every single study. It's chaos. You know, imagine you're trying to find the world's best chocolate cake recipe. But one person's recipe uses coffee, another uses avocado, and a third uses sauerkraut. And they all just label their recipe chocolate cake. You'd never figure out what actually makes a good cake. Well, that's pretty much exactly what's been happening in this field of research. So the researchers put on their detective hats to figure out why everything was so confusing. They uncovered three main problems, three big, blurry lines that were making it impossible to see clearly. Let's dig into the first clue. The first clue is a classic case of mistaken identity. It turns out researchers have been mixing up two very different ideas, the teacher-student relationship and what they call teacher support. So a relationship, in theory, is supposed to be a two-way street. It's that specific back-and-forth bond between one teacher and one student. But teacher support is way broader. It's just a student's general feeling that help is available if they need it. The problem is, studies were using these terms and their measuring tools as if they were the exact same thing, which completely muddies the water. Okay, the second clue they found was all about what wasn't being looked at. The research was almost completely focused on the sunny side of things, on all the positive parts of these relationships. And I mean, just look at this. It's wild. More than 81% of studies only looked at positive things like warmth or closeness. Less than 19%, less than 1 in 5, even bothered to measure the negative stuff like conflict or feeling treated unfairly. But we all know that bad relationships with teachers exist, and they have a huge impact. So right now, we're really only getting half the story. And that brings us to the final clue, which boils down to a super simple but really important question. Who are we actually talking about? The research was incredibly vague about who exactly the relationship was between. Seriously, think about it. Are we measuring the bond between one student and their specific chemistry teacher? Or are we averaging out how a student feels about all their teachers? Or are we asking about how a teacher relates to the class as a whole, to us? These are three completely different things, but the research has been lumping them all together as if they're not. And this isn't just some nerdy academic complaint. It really, really matters. See, when you measure something at a group level, like how a teacher treats the whole class, you have to use a specific kind of math to get an accurate answer. And the review found that almost 86% of the studies that should have used that math just didn't. So the conclusions they came to could be built on a shaky foundation. So, okay, the research is a mess. We've got mistaken identities, missing puzzle pieces, and confusion all around. But here's the good news. The researchers didn't just point out all the problems. They actually offered a clear way to fix it.
The solution is basically to draw a hard line in the sand. First, let's all agree that when we say relationship, we're talking about that specific, one-on-one, two-way bond. And second, when we talk about support, let's define that as the broader classroom or school environment. That's it. Just by agreeing on these two definitions, the field could get so much clearer. So why should any of us who aren't academic researchers care about this? Because this isn't just about getting papers published. This whole mess has direct, real-world consequences for teachers and for students in classrooms every single day.
I mean, think about it. If we don't know for sure whether the secret sauce is a one-on-one bond or a general supportive vibe in the classroom, how can we possibly design good teacher training programs? How do we create interventions that actually help struggling students? How can we write school policies that create the best learning environments? We can't. We're just guessing. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple idea. If we measure a fuzzy concept, we are going to get fuzzy results. And fuzzy results are completely useless when it comes to helping real students in the real world.
And that leaves us with a really big question for the future. We all agree on how powerful a great teacher can be. But if we can't even agree on how to measure what makes that relationship work, how can we ever hope to systematically train the next generation of teachers to build those life-changing connections? That's something to think about. Thanks for watching The Explainer.